And I remember when I came back, an aunt met me and she said, "Beta, तुम क्या करते हो? Son, what do you do?" So I said, "Auntie, मैं comedian हूँ, मैं joke सुनाता हूँ. I'm a comedian, I tell jokes." So she said, "Beta, even I tell jokes." "What do you do for a living?" I do a session which is called A Comedian's Guide to Communication and Storytelling Strategy. I break down how, as a comic, in a world of limited attention spans, we grab and retain attention, deal with customer objections, innovate, segment our market, and how you can apply that as a leader or as a business who has been battling cancer for the last 3 years and you didn't even know. Right? And you find out that when people open up and share, they have so much more in common than they had ever imagined. And the kind of things people open up about, I get goosebumps thinking about it. Right? I can't share details because some of it is obviously very private. But I have seen a woman in a room with 14 other men on a leadership team talk about such vulnerable things. "Did you do this show in Leicester last week?" And I said, "Yes, officer, I did." I'm really scared, right? Because there they have all these laws of inciting violence and "Did you close your set with this really dirty material?" One guy comes walking past, he sees me lying down, recognizes me as Papa CJ, starts reciting my own comedy lines to me, and then he calls 15 people who are at the back of this Maruti van. I'm lying in a stretcher with a broken leg that I have broken the day before, and I'm doing stand-up comedy for these guys. 3 guys come with knives, those 9-inch blade knives, and they offer to stab me. Like we call it bread, you call it pav. We call it pyaz, you call it kanda. We call it a servant quarter, you call it a 2 BHK.
Right. On Celebpreneurs, we've had actors, we've had directors, we've had producers, we've had people who are from the education line. Today, we have somebody very different. We have a comedian. And I hope this gets more comedians on Celebpreneurs. We have the guy who I would say is the pioneer as far as the Indian stand-up comedy scene in India is concerned, right? The Indian stand-up comedy scene in India. What is happening? What am I talking about? Anyways, I'm with Papa CJ. He's got a very interesting name. Whenever I interview him, which is every 7 years, I ask him why did the name Papa come about? How did that come about? But that is something which we're going to be talking about later. He is also an MBA from the University of Oxford, right? Which makes me think that the first question I should be asking you is, you got an MBA from the University of Oxford and then you went up to become a stand-up comedian, that too at a time in India when stand-up comedians were unheard of. I think the only thing at that point of time, probably 2006, 2007 or whatever, was the laughter challenge, which was primarily Hindi. So how did this happen exactly? And Papa CJ, welcome to the Celebpreneurs show.
Thank you. So I did my MBA at Oxford in the year 99-2000. And I started doing comedy in 2004 in London. I did 700 shows in 3 years and then moved back to India. And I remember when I came back, an aunt met me and she said, "Beta, तुम क्या करते हो? Son, what do you do?" So I said, "Auntie, मैं comedian हूँ, मैं jokes सुनाता हूँ. I'm a comedian, I tell jokes." So she said, "Beta, even I tell jokes. What do you do for a living?" So there was no concept that you could actually make money doing stand-up comedy. And Oxford University is also not putting me on their brochure, saying, come and spend so much money on an Oxford MBA, you could be a stand-up comedian one day.
Obviously. So, but are you there on their alumni list or something? Or would that sort of backfire for them that after us, people might become comedians?
Actually, I believe on Wikipedia, I am under their list of notable alumni.
I mean, that counts. That counts.
I'm guessing the standards are pretty low for notable alumni then.
No, but how did you go from... How did you go from the whole MBA corporate sort of scene into comedy, and why?
See, I grew up in a middle class family. My father was a tea planter. And I grew up in a house where most Indians will be familiar with this. In a house where shampoo never finished. It just magically became thinner over time. That bottle that had tomato sauce eventually had tomato soup because we all put water in it, shook it until we got the last drop out. My father started work on 825 rupees a month. I took a loan of 30,000 pounds to do my MBA. I was the youngest MBA in the history of Oxford. I was 22. I remember that entire year, I never had the guts to walk into a coffee shop. I used to look at Starbucks from outside because I couldn't imagine how you could pay £2 for a cup of coffee. I probably did more job applications than my entire course put together. The second I would get a rejection from a company, same day I would reapply to that company. There were some companies where the HR systems were not so good, so if the first time I got rejected, the second time they called me for an interview. Then eventually I landed a job in London. It took me a little over 3 years to pay back my loans. And then I took a sabbatical from work. In fact, it's quite an interesting story how the sabbatical came around. I used to help with MBA recruitment as well. So I knew all the HR partners. So they came and told me that there was a deal that is coming out where you can get 1 year sabbatical on 35% pay. And they told me there would be a job waiting for you at the end when you came back. And they told me all the criteria that you had to meet in order to get that sabbatical. So I went to my boss and I said, listen, I want to take a sabbatical for 1 year. So he said, I'm very sorry, but this is a very small business unit. I was working on an incubator on Homeland Security at that point. And so, we can't possibly let you go. So I told him, boss, dekh, ye deal hai, right, where you can get this sabbatical on 35% pay. It is amazing. My boss and I, we both took a sabbatical.
No, this is like actually happened?
Actually, yeah, my boss and I, we both took a sabbatical for 1 year on 35% pay. That business unit only shut down. So in that sabbatical, I went to the Edinburgh Festival and I saw somebody doing comedy for the first time.
That's a pretty famous comedy festival. Yeah.
It's the biggest arts festival in the world. They have 3,000 shows per day. Right? Everything. They've got jazz, they've got music, they've got opera, they've got theatre, they've got comedy. It's phenomenal. And that's where I saw comedy for the first time. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. Right? I mean, here's a guy on stage just having fun. And that's his job. So I thought, boss, ye karne ka hai. I chucked up my job. In my first 10 months, I did 250 shows.
No. 1 minute. Cycle back. There's this whole concept of doing open mics. Then you start getting
open mics. See, when you were in London, you did open mics. When you went outside London, you were doing the middle spot. And you got 10 minutes. But sometimes I would drive for 4 hours one way to do 10 minutes, wait till, so I'll tell you exactly what happened. I used to wake up every day at 10:30, 11, cook one meal for myself at 2 o'clock, get into some comedian's car at 4 in the afternoon, drive to some city in the UK, do 10 minutes. I wasn't getting paid for any of these shows. If the club wasn't giving us food on the house, most of the time I couldn't afford to eat. We would finish at 10:30, 11. Drive back, get dropped off in the outskirts of London. I would pay the driver my share of petrol. I couldn't afford a taxi. I would change 3 different buses, sometimes waiting for 45 minutes in cold London winter, and I would get home at about 4:35 in the morning. I did that every single day for an entire year. At the end of the year, you have no money, no friends, no relationships, and no life. But every single comedy promoter in the country knows your name. That's how you start.
Every single day?
Every single day. For a year.
You did this?
250 gigs in 10 months. That's almost every day. And then after the first year, I went completely broke. So I joined a recruitment firm in London. I used to work in the day, I used to perform at night. And nowadays, people talk about hustling. It's a very popular word. In those days, in restaurants, they used to have this little fishbowl. And you could put your business card in. And the restaurant would build their network like that, and one person would get a free meal. I used to go to restaurants when nobody was looking. I would steal those business cards. I would cold call these guys, place them in jobs, get a commission, and that financed me to do comedy. Those days you didn't have the internet on your phone. So when you would travel at airports, they had these business centers with these desktops and terminals. I would go to every terminal, open the browser, and change the homepage to papacj.com. 20 years have gone. Even now when I go to an Apple store, if nobody is looking, I change the homepage to papacj.com.
Damn, that's hustle, that's jugaad, that's.
So I did that. Then when I was working in this recruitment firm, one of my clients was a company called the Mind Gym, and they did leadership coaching. So I qualified as a coach with them. And with them, I've trained over 50 companies all over the world. I'm talking 2006, 2007. So I've trained Google at their headquarters in Ireland, Nike in their headquarters in Hilversum in Amsterdam, UBS in Zurich. I've trained the global head of HR for E&Y in New York, BBC, Universal Music, I mean, you name it, Her Majesty's Treasury. So that was also phenomenal because that gave me a different skill set, but it also allowed me to finance my comedy. And even when I was doing the job, I may have been working for 8 hours in a day, but in my head I was a comedian and the job was on the side. So that was the journey before moving back to India. And I did about 700 shows in the UK between 2005, 6 and 7. Then moved back to India.
Damn, okay, so now you move back to India.
Yeah.
What happens?
Moved back to India, like I said, there was no comedy circuit. So I decided I would start it. I first did 2 national tours in 2008. And then 2009, I launched the open mic circuit in Delhi. This was before the Comedy Store came to Mumbai and things like that. And it was a wonderful community because I didn't know how many comedians we would get. So we had a poet, we had a magician, we had somebody who would come and sing. I called it Papa CJ's Shaken and Stirred. So you had a mixed bag of, you never know what would show up on the day, right? And I think it was a wonderful time because it was a very supportive atmosphere. Especially with comedy when you start, nobody is good, right? We are all terrible when we start. And if the audience heckles you, you can sometimes kill the spirit of the performer. So I ensured that there was always a very positive atmosphere and the comedian could grow. And if there was ever a heckler who came hard after a comic, I would jump in, I would destroy that guy. In some cases, get that guy on stage and say, you think it's so easy, tu karke dikha. And then when he would crumble, then I would put him back and say, it's not so easy to do, no, you keep quiet and get the comic back on. And slowly as it grew, then as comedians start performing, they want more stage time. Now, if you want more stage time, you have to organize your own comedy night. So one by one, the comedy night started growing. And then I wasn't required on the ground to grow the circuit because it organically started growing. Then I figured if you want to make a living doing stand-up, you need to do corporate shows. So I started doing a lot more corporate work and then started making more of a living doing stand-up comedy at that point. But a big switch also came when COVID happened. Because when COVID happened, comedy died. Right? You can't be firing people and then saying, oh, we don't have budget for salaries, but here's a comedian. Right? So that's when I started focusing a little bit more on my coaching. And so now I've run strategy offsites for the chairman of PwC, for his leadership team. Back-to-back years I've done that. I worked with another company that I cannot name for legal reasons, but let's just call it Banana. So I ran a strategy offsite for the leadership team of Banana. I do keynote talks. I do a few sessions which are very interesting because they bring together the world of stand-up comedy and coaching and leadership. I do a session which is called A Comedian's Guide to Communication and Storytelling Strategy. I break down how as a comic, in a world of limited attention spans, we grab and retain attention, deal with customer objections, innovate, segment our market, and how you can apply that as a leader or as a business. So that's a very entertaining session because the way it's structured is, here's this wonderful story from stand-up comedy. Ha ha ha, how entertaining. Then I say, why am I telling you this story? And I pull out the learning from the context of stand-up. And then I tell that specific organization, this is how it applies in your world. So there's no gyan. All the slides are beautiful photographs with nice stories. So it works for every level of sort of seniority as well. So that's one. Then there's another session called Naked Leadership. So I used to do a tour called Naked.
That's the name of your autobiography also.
Yeah, so in fact, the publishers saw the show and said, this story is very interesting, we want it to be a book. Yeah. So that's why it got turned into a book. But that show is 80% funny, it's 20% deadly serious. To the point that 50% of the audience is actually in tears, they're actually crying during the show.
crying out of happy, like so funny or so
Sad.
during the show?
Yes. They are happy tears also, but they are sad tears as well. So the idea behind it is that as human beings, we build walls around ourselves, which hide our deepest hopes and fears and desires. Over the course of this show, one brick at a time, I am removing those walls and I'm exposing myself with all my vulnerability, all my pain. It is terrifying yet exhilarating at the same time. But at the end of it, while you're completely naked, you're completely free. Now, I'm using the vehicle of my life, but I'm talking about the human experience. So at some point in that show, every single person in the audience is thinking, yeah, this is my life. I have gone through similar experiences or similar emotions. So there is a very strong connect, an emotional connect that you have with an audience when you do that. How do I use that in leadership? I first get leadership teams to watch this show. That puts them in the frame of mind to actually be vulnerable and open up themselves. See, when you work with people, you know them, you like them, we trust them. You tend to focus more on the no. Right? Trust doesn't happen by somebody falling off a chair and you catch them and suddenly there's trust. Right? But what does help is when you open up to people. Right? That level of vulnerability, that transparency, you are able to connect at a human level. So I have had, after I've done the show, then I tell people specific things that I want to talk about I want them to talk about from their lives, and maybe share one photograph that is meaningful to them and why. I have done this at the senior most levels. I did this for Philip Morris in Switzerland. We had 14 people from 12 different countries. Salaries between $300,000 a year and $3 million a year. That's the level of seniority. 8 of them were in tears. I had people walking out of that room saying, you know what, I have worked with this person for 25 years. I have learnt more about them today than I have learnt in 25 years. Now, that group of people is connected to each other at a human level. Today, what is one of the biggest challenges that organizations face? People are incentivized vertically, but you want them to collaborate horizontally. That is not happening, right? Now, you are not doing something for that person because head of marketing is asking, right? You are doing that something for them because Samir is asking, who has been battling cancer for the last 3 years and you didn't even know, right? And you find out that when people open up and share, they have so much more in common than they had ever imagined. And the kind of things people open up about, I get goosebumps thinking about it, right? I can't share details because some of it is obviously very private, but I have seen a woman in a room with 14 other men on a leadership team talk about such vulnerable things, and the kind of respect she earned in that room that day was just phenomenal. Phenomenal. And that is extremely powerful. That is extremely powerful. Because the business stuff we can all talk about, but to actually get people to connect at a human level, that is what creates trust, that's what creates cooperation, and that's what creates magic. The other real power of running a strategy offsite is actually what makes me a good leadership coach. It's not the leadership coaching bit, it's the comedy. You create an environment. See, you don't have the answers. I don't know their business better than them. They know it. I have to be able to create the environment for them to actually have honest conversations. And because of the comedic ability, I'm able to create that lightness of being, create that energy and space where people actually have honest conversations. So if I'm pulling together, let's say, a strategy offsite, I send them questions in advance, qualitative and quantitative. Now, one of the quantitative questions, for example, is I am clear about the priorities of my organization. Average score 7 on 10. One person is saying 10 on 10, one person is saying 2 on 10. You are the leadership team. Right? Now, if you 12 people are not on the same page, how will you get your organization on the same page? Right? So, one of the things I say, listen, over the next 2 days together, we are going to get on the same page. On the qualitative stuff, I say, boss, here are the 10 things all of you are saying is critical for the organization, either in terms of goals we have to achieve or barriers we have to remove. Now, what are the top 3 you want to focus on in the next 2 days? So then we vote and discuss and decide the top 3. Then I say, okay, you're saying this is what the organization needs to do. Who is the organization? You are the organization. First thing is, in your capacity, in the next 3 months, what are you going to do to address these 3 critical issues that you have identified? Please tell us your specific action items with milestones and commitments. Then post that. So for example, there's a consulting firm I worked with, a large firm. They're structured by industry and competence. So first I get the competence groups together, right? In your competencies, how will you address these 3 issues? Then I get the industry group together, but each industry group has one person from each competence group. So they are bringing the knowledge of the previous conversation together. Then we get everyone in the room together, and you're asking them, if there is any help or support you need, ask for it now in this room, right? And all along the way, even when they're having those discussions in the groups, they're coming up with specific commitments for the next 3 months, which are assigned to individuals. Last thing I do is speed dating, right? In the speed dating, you have to go and find 3 people and come up with joint commitments. Not CJ will support Kabir for this. CJ and Kabir will go to this client together, right? Raj and Gaurav will run this training program together. Right? Now, if you think of the entire process, all the inputs you have given in advance, right? You have prioritized what you want to focus on. You have made individual commitments. You have made joint commitments. And you have put them on a sheet with commitments to action with timelines. Because what happens in these offsites is we have this wonderful conversation, there are no action items, everybody goes back to work and does things exactly as they've always done before. But this entire process, you have complete buy-in because everything has come from them, right? And you've got action items at the end. My job is to facilitate that and ensure they are having open conversations. So sorry, I've given you a lot about leadership coaching.
No. I mean, it's a very well sort of detailed answer which answers the next 3 questions which I was going to ask you.
Then there's another session I actually run on mindset. It's called breaking the pattern. You know, we go for all these leadership things and we say, oh, we're going to do things differently. You go back to work the next day and you do things exactly as you've always done before, right? This looks at what some of those traps are of your existing knowledge coming in the way and how you can get out of them. Like there's one fabulous exercise in this. I shouldn't tell you this because one of the best exercises in the workshop. So whether you've got 10 people or whether you've got 200 people, I give them all balloons, blown up balloons, and each person has a toothpick. I tell them to gather together and I say an instruction is going to come on screen. As soon as it comes, I want you to follow that instruction. And then slight change, you say, run, save your balloon. Oh my God, Kabir, it is so much fun. They are running, somebody is standing on a chair, they are bursting balloons. I have seen leadership teams, 10 people running a $10 billion business. Each person handles a $1 billion business themselves. Somebody is crawling under the table. There are 2 people who have crawled after that person to go and burst that balloon, right? It's chaos. It's really fun. Then I get them all to sit down. I say, okay, what was the instruction? Save your balloon. Who told you to burst anyone else's balloon? Right? What happens in an organization? You have a target. Sir, he did not do his job. Right? Are you focusing on putting other people down? Or are you working as one united team?
Crab mentality, yeah.
Right? And then I love playing that clip from Chak De India, where Shah Rukh Khan has just become the coach of the Indian team. Right? And he tells each member to come and introduce themselves. And so-and-so says, so-and-so Chautala, Haryana, out. Balbir Kaur, Punjab, out. Until that girl says, Vidya Sharma, India. Right? And then he gets them all to introduce themselves. And then I ask them, what team are you working for? Are you working for finance? Are you working for marketing? And then you all shout the name of that organization. And that really gets them all pumped up. So yeah, those are some of the things I do in the coaching space. But it is actually the comedy that is the superpower in the coaching space.
Bloody hell, 10 on 10 for that answer.
Yeah, it's a very elaborate answer.
Now, coming to I mean, we'll keep cycling back and forth. Coming to your upcoming show, it's called Still Standing Up.
Yes.
So first, obviously, what is the show all about? But also, why that name? It sort of suggests that, I don't know, as a layman, still standing up means I am still around, something like that. So what is the?
So it's quite interesting. For many years, I have mostly done corporate shows. I do very few public shows.
Like comedy.
Of comedy. I do very few ticketed shows because, see, I'm an Oxford MBA who left a corporate career to do stand-up comedy. I still think of it as a hobby. My passion is doing live stand-up. I haven't bothered with social media, reels, shoot content, put it up, thumbnail karo.
Which is refreshing.
See, I didn't leave the corporate world to join a creative field to be in a rat race in the creative field.
Oh, nice.
I wish everybody success. I want all comedians to succeed. I don't think of it as a competition. There is space for everybody. But this is what gives me joy. I want to focus on the bits that give me joy. Now, the flip side to that is I sometimes say that I'm the most famous comedian who nobody knows. Because the event agencies know me, the industry knows me, the corporates know me, but the general public maybe does not. I personally love that because I don't want to be famous. I think of fame as a prison, right? I love the fact that I can be anonymous and go and sit in a cafe and have a cup of coffee and not be disturbed. It's a byproduct of what I do. But I have just finished 20 years in stand-up. So a bunch of friends got together and said, CJ, come on, you should do some tour, right? So, I mean, you might as well have called the show, I'm Not Dead Yet, right? So this is just a little way of saying, I do stand-up, you know. It's quite funny, they've marketed the show and put this hashtag saying return of the OG. I told them, listen, I know you're trying to make it sound cool. My audience is very intelligent. When they say OG, it basically means old guy. But yeah, I'm also enjoying, I'm really enjoying doing the public shows as well. And so yeah, that's why it's called Still Standing Up. And I think the one thing you will find that is different in many of my shows to other comics you may have seen, even I don't know what's going to happen on the day. I am so interactive and I talk to the audience a lot. And also my shows, we tend to have people from age 20 to age 80 and above. So I love the diversity of that audience because as a comedian, it gives me a lot to play with. So I love having those conversations, seeing where it goes and playing with the audience. And if you come like on back-to-back days, 4 days in a row, it could be a different show every day.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, I have jokes, don't get me wrong. I have jokes.
Yeah, of course, I get it.
I will use them when I need to. There are certain things I will do probably most days, but there's a lot of it that's just made up on the spot.
Talking of comedy and comedy in the current scenario, it seems to have become pretty dangerous business nowadays, comedy. What are your views on that? Comedians frequently getting into all kinds of trouble.
I personally don't think that comedy is necessarily a dangerous business. You can't put a blanket statement. Firstly, all over the world, in any country, there are certain things you can say, there are certain things you can't say. Right? You get on stage in Singapore, you cannot mention Lee Kuan Yew. Right? You get on stage in Malaysia, you cannot talk about the religion of the country. Right? You get on stage in Dubai, you can't say anything negative about Dubai. Right? So there are restrictions everywhere. I have rarely got into trouble because, in fact, never so far, I shouldn't speak too soon. I mostly do live stand-up. My contracts don't allow people to record. Now, in a live room, my audience understands my persona, they understand my intent, and they understand the context. Now, if someone was to shoot one clip of that and stick it on the internet, people who are not in that room will see it and they may take it out of context. The second thing is, as a comedian, when I perform, I will tease you, I will embarrass you, but I am not hurtful. If for a second I feel somebody is going to get hurt by something, or I can sense the energy shift, or I feel somebody may, I'll move back from it. Because that's not who I am as a comedian. Now, there is no right way to do stand-up. You have to figure out what is right for you. you also, there is an ideal and there is a reality of how the world is. Now when Charlie Hebdo happened, you can argue till kingdom come, should it have happened, should it not have happened, but you can't pretend to be surprised that it happened. So when you get on stage in any country in the world, as a comedian you know that if I do jokes about this, I could get into trouble. Now you have to decide as a comic whether it is more important for you to make that point or more important for you to entertain and live a happy, safe life. That is your call to take. However, I have also seen comedians who get on stage with the intention to provoke.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right?
Yes,
They're not even trying to be funny,
yes.
They want to provoke.
Yes.
Now, after that, you can't control in what way the other party gets provoked. Right? So, I mean, it's a very complex subject, but I think each person needs to do what works for them based on their own value system. Right? For me, I bring about change in a different way. Right? I have something called the Happiness Project. I will do fundraiser shows and raise many lakhs for charities. I go to cancer wards. I go to the hospital rooms of terminally ill patients. I go to people's homes. That's my way of bringing change. I am not fond of conflict, so I would rather, bring change in my own way. But for those who want to do it differently, to each their own. With all of these things, I believe stand-up comedy and any art form for that matter is an outward expression of an inward journey. The journey has to be inward. You see, initially when you start, you want to please everybody. So you will go for the easy joke. So the kind of thing I would say is, I live in Delhi. As somebody who lives in Delhi, I don't understand the language you speak in Mumbai. Like we call it bread, you call it pav. We call it pyaz, you call it kanda. We call it a servant quarter, you call it a 2 BHK. See, now I know that's going to get a laugh. Yeah. Then we do observational comedy. You're still laughing at it. I love that.
Because, don't get that.
Touched a nerve there, didn't I?
No idea.
So then, do not edit this out.
I will not edit it out.
Then we do observational comedy. So for example, I used to live in London. I remember taking driving lessons in London, and this instructor says, "Oh, you Indians, why don't you drive in a straight line?" I said, "Listen, I'm not used to it. I'm from Calcutta. Right? In England, you drive on the left of the road. In Calcutta, we drive on what is left of the road." Right? So that's a joke you've heard me say before. Then what happens is, you want to do the kind of jokes that make you feel intelligent. Right? You get a little arrogant, you will start using more bad language, you will pick on positions of authority. Not that it's a bad thing or a good thing, it's just what happens. So I'll give you an example of a joke. I went to the US under the recent administration. The officer looks at my passport, looks at my beard. He says, "You know what, you Indians, you're a mistake. In fact, India is a mistake." I said, "Come on, officer. As an American, you should be grateful to us." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, because when Christopher Columbus discovered America, he was looking for India. So to be perfectly honest, you are the mistake. Technically, that makes America the bastard child of India." Right? Now see, it may not get a laugh,
but it is an intelligent guy.
It gets a round of applause.
Yeah.
And people are thinking, "Oh yeah," there's a pause, and then you get it. "Oh, Columbus was looking for India when he discovered America." Hare, whatever. Right? But eventually you figure out that you're in a profession with no rules, no boundaries, no guidelines, no social norms. You're forced to look inwards. Right? What do I find funny? What are my values? Eventually you don't even care about the audience. This is what works for me, and your audience finds you. The kind of people who don't like your work will weed themselves out automatically. If you think of the more famous comedians in the world, Jerry Seinfeld, Sarah Silverman, Chris Rock, they're not going to change what they do depending on who's in the room. Right? I mean, Chris Rock might if Will Smith is in the front row. So I think it's an inward journey, and that's where you want to be. But I will add to that, in every artistic profession, see, you want to feed your soul, but you need to feed your stomach as well. The things you need to do to feed your stomach will finance you to do the things you want to do to feed your soul. शाहरुख खान भी शादियों में नाचता है, right? I'm pretty sure dancing at weddings is not his passion project. There is no shame in that. That's a part of life, you know. Of course, the holy grail is to eventually be at a place where you can only do what you love doing, and that is enough to finance you. But there is no right way. You have to figure out a way that is right for you. Today, for example, I could be sitting in LA shooting a sitcom. I could be sitting in Bombay making movies. I live in Delhi. Every single morning, and this happens 300 days a year, I go to my local cafe, I sit with my mom and dad, we spend 1 hour together and have a cup of coffee together. There is no amount of money, fame, or so to say success you could offer me that is greater value to me than that. So for me, that is my definition of success. That is the right way for me. It may not be for you. So I think it's very important. There are too many people who are chasing a definition of success that has been defined by others, whether it is family, whether it is society. Oh, look, he's doing so well. The guy may be miserable, but he's doing so well. And what is social media now? Social media is it is this generation's version of log kya kahenge. How many likes, how many shares. Your sense of self-worth is coming from external validation, right? That's a very dangerous place to be for your own mental health, for your own growth, you know. And it's very important, even in the comedy profession. People want to make a 5-minute clip that becomes viral. Great, go for it. I think it's fabulous. The internet is great. It levels the playing field. It allows talent to get noticed. But please know that 5 minutes on the internet is not going to teach you how to hold a live audience for 90 minutes. It will help you sell out an auditorium. But once they come in, you may not be able to engage that audience for 90 minutes.
So that has happened with certain...
Sure. So it is very important for you to learn the trade before you learn the tricks of the trade. Right? That is one thing I would emphasize on.
I think we can change your name from Papa CJ to Baba CJ, right? Okay. Wow. What I love is when I've got like 15 questions and I ask one question and the person has already answered the next 4 questions. So then I'm looking at, okay, where do I shift this to next? You've spoken about naked leadership. You've spoken about leadership
Kabir,
coaching.
Forget the questions. Wherever the conversation naturally takes you, go with it.
वो तो है. No, so I read about this story in South Africa. You were performing and you were threatened by some people who had you at knife point or something.
So there are 2 separate stories. I was threatened with knives in Leicester, and I went to a show. It was a reasonably conservative audience, and I asked the organizer any limitations on language, content. You know, I want to be respectful. He said, no, I've seen what you do. They know what they're coming for. You go for it. So I went for it, and I was closing my show with some really dirty stuff, right? And from behind, I could see this guy going, cut. And I thought, dude, you're not the director. So I finished my show, went really well. Go to the bathroom afterwards, and 3 guys come with knives, those 9-inch blade knives, and they offer to stab me, right? I mean, they didn't offer. They weren't like, they weren't English about it. If you don't mind, could I possibly stab you? Far more aggressive. So I spoke to them. I said, listen, I have specifically checked this with the organizer. Why don't you go and speak to him? And if he says anything different, you can come back and do whatever you like. Luckily for me, all 3 of them went. I got into my car and I drove back to London. Following week, on a Friday afternoon, I get a call from Leicestershire Police.
Oh shit.
Right? This is the phone conversation. Hello, is that Papa CJ? Yes. This is Officer Ranveer calling from the Leicestershire Police. Yes, officer. Did you do this show in Leicester last week? And I said, yes, officer, I did. And I'm really scared, right? Because there they have all these laws of inciting violence and... Did you close your set with this really dirty material? Like, yes, officer, I did. 300 Black and Asian officers are having their Christmas party tonight. We would really like you to come and perform.
Damn, wow.
That is Leicestershire Police. South Africa, what happened is I had to perform at gunpoint. April 2007, I was invited to headline a comedy festival. The contract said you got to get paid in advance. I hadn't got paid. I still took the flight. Got there. I told the guy, listen, you need to pay me before the show. Pay me today. He said, no, I'll pay you tomorrow when I come to get you for the show. So he comes the next day. I said, where's my money? He says, I haven't got it. I said, I'm not doing the show. He pulls out a revolver and he puts it here. He said, yes, you are. So I get to the show. There are 500 people in front. I'm on stage. There's a guy at the back with a gun in his hand. So if you're asking whether I can do comedy to save my life, yes, I can.
You literally have.
I literally have done it. Then there's another story of, if you want to hear it.
No, please go ahead.
We finished a late show in London at about 2:30 in the morning. 5 comedians, very drunk. I do not endorse drinking and driving, but this is what happened. So, start driving. This comedian drives it the wrong way into a one-way, starts reversing. Cops catch us, test the driver. He's way above the limit. Now, the law in the UK says you have to test the driver at the car and then again at the police station. And if you're above the limit, it is second to murder. It's a massive crime. Car gets put on the side, comedian in the police van. We said moral support, we'll come with you. On the way to the police station, we start chatting with the police. We said, listen, we are comedians. It's a school night, it's a Thursday night. You're encouraging the audience to have a few drinks. You've got to show them you're having a few yourself. Cut a long story short, we ended up performing for the police in the police station from 4 in the morning till 6 in the morning. They got the driver something to eat, they let him drink water, they let him go to the bathroom, they checked him at 6:30 in the morning, he was below the limit. Sorry to trouble you, sir, the first machine must have been faulty, you are free to go.
How long was the ride?
Huh?
How long was the ride?
Right to the police station?
Yeah.
Must have been 25-30 minutes.
So in 25-30 minutes you sort of...
No, 25-30 minutes we were talking to the police.
Convinced them for the, whatever
No,
the show happened.
For 2 hours we were performing in the police station from 4 until 6 in the morning.
Must have been a pretty useful conversation in that ride to sort of get...
Yeah.
Okay.
All these adventures happen.
Okay, one more.
One more. It's not a funny story, but there was a girl once who dived headfirst into the shallow end of a pool at 3 in the morning at some party in Delhi. I happened to be there because somebody was supposed to drop me home from a wedding. I had left the lights on in my car, so my battery had failed. They stopped at this party. And the second this girl dived in, everybody ran away. And it was me and her boyfriend who took her to the hospital. He's holding both her legs and one arm. I'm holding one arm and her head. The doctor is putting 32 stitches on her head, on her skull, which is pretty much cracked. And I'm doing stand-up comedy to distract her from the pain, from what else is going on over there. So that's another situation where I have done stand-up in. And myself, I've done stand-up in. I have done stand-up with 103 fever. I have done stand-up with pneumonia. I remember that show also. I was on stage and I told the audience my chest is hurting. Like, if in the middle of the show I collapse, please help me.
Chest was hurting?
Yeah. I said in the middle of the show, if I collapse, please help me. And they laughed. Nobody takes you seriously. I had broken my leg once. I have done shows on wheelchairs. I have done shows in crutches. So, lots of stories.
But let's cycle back to the heart because आजकल ना ये काफी हो रहा है.
No, this was pre-COVID.
नहीं, COVID का भी नहीं. But did you think it was something more serious?
No, I didn't know what it was, but I was getting sharp shooting pains, and the next day I was admitted in hospital because I had pneumonia. There was some fluid in the lung or something. So yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you, I had a massive motorcycle accident in Ladakh 6 years ago. This leg broke in 2 pieces. I actually wrote a whole new show about it. This is another great gift about comedy. Even when you're going through pain, you're thinking, you know what, in 6 months' time, this is going to be hilarious on stage. But I remember my leg had snapped, put on cardboard, taped it up. We were 6 hours away from mobile connectivity. I was at Leh airport. I had gone in an ambulance, which is a Maruti van. The back of it, the stretcher didn't fit, so that somebody was actually holding that thing to shut it. And then when I was parked at the airport, that thing was open. I'm lying on the stretcher with a broken leg. One guy comes walking past. He sees me lying down, recognizes me as Papa CJ, starts reciting my own comedy lines to me. And then he calls 15 people who are at at the back of this Maruti van, I'm lying in a stretcher with a broken leg that I have broken the day before, and I'm doing stand-up comedy for these guys. I mean, it was hilarious.
What a bunch of pretty crazy stories.
So this also happens.
Now, getting back to the other side of it, I also read you're also into some sort of angel investments.
Yeah.
You're also we were talking about the fact that you're also dabbling in the stock market. So, do you have any tips, or is it just like मतलब भाई lucky हो गए या क्या है?
See, I'm not an intelligent investor. Right? I will straight that off the top. Please don't follow any of my tips. For me, it is like in Diwali when you go to play cards, right? You get on the table thinking this amount of money I am willing to lose. This is for my entertainment, so I play with only that amount that I have. I've invested in 17, 18 startups. My logic is, as they say, dhanda or banda. It needs to be a business you understand, and the founder needs to be a decent guy who you think is capable and all. But invariably, I'm investing because my friend is saying, listen, I am going in. You want to come with me? So I say yes. My friend is investing because I am going in. And it's like a little circle, it comes back to that person. The startups, it will take some time before they come to fruition. But I have been playing with the US stock market for about a couple of years, and I have got on average a 50% return, which is ridiculous. But it is pure gambling. I'll tell you my strategy and what I do. I open up the internet and I go to the NASDAQ and I look for the biggest losses of the day. I look for a company that has dropped 40%, 50% or more. Then I look at the history of that share. Has it ever had great heights? If it has, then I do a little research and make sure that this company is not going to go completely bust. Right? And if it isn't, then I put some amount of money in it. Invariably, within 2 weeks, it's up by 20%, and then I cash out. So there is no logic to it, there is no intelligence to it, but it has worked for me. So yeah.
That brings me to my last question. Yeah. Papa CJ.
Yeah. Why the name? I'll tell you why. When I started doing comedy in the UK in 2004, I was the only Indian comedian in the entire country. I always wanted to represent India in a positive light, because even when I left the room, they may not remember my name, but they will remember that Indian comedian. The first line I wrote was, "Don't mess with us Indians. We come from the land of the Kama Sutra. We can more ways than you can count." Subconsciously in my head, I thought to myself, अंग्रेजों को भी लगना चाहिए कि उनका कोई बाप है. So I stuck the name Papa there, and I used to secretly get kicked in my head or get excited when I had all these white English people saying Papa, Papa. I was like, yeah, baby, who's your
This is the real reason.
Yeah, but I can tell you why it works in hindsight. It's easy to remember, it's catchy, it works as a brand, and if at any point somebody comes with knives to stab Papa CJ, the only place they will find Papa CJ is at a club where I have security. So there you go.
Okay, that's a fun chat. I think I seem to meet you every 7 years. The last time I met you was when I was interviewing you in Delhi. Before that was again 7 years back at someone's wedding. I had run into you, and I think I had taken a selfie with you. That was in 2008, 9, 10. I don't remember, but a great talk. A mix of humor and a lot of life lessons, I must say, and very, very interesting stories. But Papa CJ, best of luck for the future and
Thank you.
Your upcoming show.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have you back sometime. Yeah.
And hopefully we will meet again before the next 7 years.
Yeah, we should. We ideally should.
Super.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. Thank you for your time.